it's called, but it's something about discovery metadata. So I'll declare right at the start, I'm not an expert in these things. I'm taking, maybe like a lot of us, copy and pasting what someone else has done first, then going, well, that's not quite right, and manipulating it for our use. So what I'll start off with is a short presentation of the discovery metadata that we've put together for the ESO data. I'll highlight some things that still puzzling us or we still need to do. And once I've done that, I think the next session then actually takes that forward and actually tries to publish it. So I think that's more of the workshop bit. So this is more of a presentation side thing. So I'll share my, let me see if I can share my screen. Let's go for this, see if that's right. Okay. That's what I wanted to see. So, okay, so, and as well, I guess you all know, but the ESO service itself is exposing high temporal and spatial resolution data from the EUMETNET members automatic weather stations. So it's running on the European Weather Cloud. It's supported by DWD and Met Norway on behalf of EUMETNET. So that's the discovery. So this is where I started. It was just like, oh, some discovery metadata, and there was a lot of words, a lot of numbers. Didn't quite know how to interpret it all, and so yeah, don't use a text editor. Use something like Visual Studio or whatever your favorite tool is to visualize these JSON files. So that's where I started. Oh, I don't know where to start. And as I said, this is a bit of a work in progress. There's still a few things we need to do, and we still need to publish the data, but we'll do that hopefully by the end of the afternoon. And as well as the work we're doing on this ESO data set, the Met Office, who hosts 3 EUMETNET data hubs, one is for eProfile, EABO, and EGVAP, are also publishing, going to publish the data onto Wiz2, of course, and make it available through MeteoGate. So what we're trying to do is make sure the discovery metadata we produce today and here as part of the RODIA project is aligned with what's going on in the Met Office, and the other way around, that we tell the Met Office you should maybe describe your metadata slightly differently, so everything's nice. So yeah, so that's that slide. Just a couple of tools. There are probably others, but there's a couple of tools I've been using to actually validate the GeoJSON itself, and to validate that the geometry that I've put in for the areas that are covered is the right part of the world that I thought it should be. And what I've not put there is a link to another tool which is WMO tool, which validates the discovery metadata itself. So when we share the slides, I'll add that link in as well. Okay, so the discovery metadata itself. So it starts off with an ID, and this should be a unique ID for this data set. The ID includes the center ID. So I think there's another topic on the agenda to do with the hierarchy of the topic, the message queue topic. So yep, so it has the center ID matches that, and also we put in the observation type right at the end of the ID to identify it. And we'll cover this elsewhere, but the center ID in this case is Met Norway, so it's no.metnorway.ab- and we put EUMETNET in there to distinguish this product from Met Norway's actual in-house data they publish. And similarly, the Met Office are going to go for UK-Met Office-EUMETNET. So it's different. So different center ID. So that's the ID. And the next part of the discovery metadata is the geometry. So in this case, we started quite simple. We've just put in what's called the UCOS area, which is, well, it's shown on the map there. So pretty much that, how to describe that, the North Atlantic and Europe and North Africa. We could have gone for a multi-polygon. So the little images you see on the right-hand side, those maps there, that's the geometry of the eProfile network. And eProfile, although it's EUMETNET, has data from Europe, Australia, New Zealand, a couple of little, there's a station in Antarctica, there's St. Helena in the middle of the South Atlantic, and Samoa. So we could do this. We could, so for example, for our automatic weather stations, you know, we within EUMETNET members operate stations all over the world. So again, we could add that as a multi-polygon. Another option would be to not go for a polygon at all, but actually have the position of all the stations. Which may be something we'll consider doing. That's a bit more dynamic. So stations come and go. Stations are working one day, not the next day. So maybe we don't want to do that. But for now, we're starting. I maybe should have said we're going to try and start reasonably simple. Not the, you know, bit more than the minimum we can get away with, but we'll start simple. So anyway, we're starting with the geometry of what's the UCOS area, of what's known as the UCOS area. The time part of the discovery metadata. Now, this has puzzled me a bit. I've seen a few examples here where people put dates and times in. Some people have described this differently. So I believe, but I could be wrong, this is the way you describe in time, that it's real time. You don't put a date in, you're just saying every day, 24/7, a 10-minute resolution, or temporal resolution, the data is. So that's my understanding, that's correct. Well, I wouldn't be happy to be corrected, but I'm happy to be corrected on if that's not right. One of the issues we had here was that most automatic weather station data we get does have a 10-minute temporal resolution, but we do get some which is a high resolution. I think, well, we're anticipating some will be higher resolution, so we might get 1 minute data from, I think maybe Sweden publish every 1 minute. So, and similarly, I think others maybe have a lower resolution, maybe even 30 minutes or even an hour at this stage. So we've gone for the most common here. I'm not sure whether there's a method of listing all of the possible temporal resolutions within the data. Yeah.
Regarding the interval,
yeah.
What if we want to publish? This implies we only want to publish the live stations, not the ones that were active sometime in the past. For instance, if some station was operational like between 2000 and 2005,
okay,
I would imagine this would be the place to put the beginning and the end.
Yes, it would. So the question was to do with maybe historic data rather than real-time data. So I should have said is that the ESO system itself is only publishing real-time data.
So as soon one station stops working, you just remove it from the.
Yeah, yeah. So there'll be, or maybe more in the climate area. So the climate discovery metadata will be different to this as far as time is concerned. So for ESO, which publishes data in near real time, and is only concerned with data over the last 24 hours.
It's such a short time.
It is, yeah. So this data set you'll only ever find data for the last 24 hours through ESO.
And what would be some other possible let's say, publish the plug into interval.
Yeah, she would start end dates.
So for climate, you start with your oldest measurement until, well, because this is for your whole data set. So then, like we have one that is still working today. So then the last one would be dot dot dots. So you start with the first, and then the last one is the dot dot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can have you can have a time interval or a duration which is doesn't end, and you just say that with dot dot instead of putting whatever the date time is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this seems to be a recurring question when looking through the EDR profile. Like, what is the there's going to be many questions at the same time. Like, what are the possible what is there the degrees of freedom within the each of the key?
Yeah.
Like you were asking about the grids. Jeremy, I think that you were asking about the grids. What's stopping
the grids?
Yeah. Yeah. This might be counted as one of them. Like what is some really hands-on examples, and how would you describe them in this language?
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's really right, because I was finding the same. When I was trying to put this time together for real-time data, I was seeing examples with dates in it, and I thought, well, I can't put a start and end date because it's today, and that's it. So this is what I found as a way of describing near real-time delivery of data. You know, you ignore the date part, you just say data that. But
I think this is challenge not only here but also when you implement the EDR, because there you have to put the time in the collection level. So if you have a lot of observations and all the stations in one collection, so you have to advertise certain time extent, which is basically common for all the stations. Yeah. Or if you don't advertise it at all, but then in the profile we plan to put in the location query, there you can have location specific information, which parameters are available from the station, like ESO already does. But it would be possible to put the time extent there also per station.
okay.
Just to summarize what's been said in the room, so there's been a request for examples in the documentation, so that I will not replay the whole conversation, but it's recorded, isn't it?
Yeah.
So look at the presentation afterwards.
Yeah, so examples from this, and also the same issue with the EDR profile itself. So it's not just the discovery metadata, it's also within EDR, some examples. Okay, so that's time. So we need the title. So we've just come up with a very succinct title of the land surface weather observations, and then a bit of a longer description, which goes on to say, which probably says it's only for the last 24 hours. So that's this data set. There will be other data sets with long, at the national level with longer archives, but for this particular ESO data set, this is our description. And then the next part of the profile, we have some contact details. So who would if you're subscribing to this, if things go wrong, who would you contact? So as far as ESO is concerned, we need to do a bit more work on this and put in details in here. So the example I have on the right is actually not to do with ESO, it's to do with the eProfile product I mentioned earlier on. So you have an ID which says it's MO for the Met Office, it says it's UK Met Office Weather Desk, and it has a telephone number, it has an email address, it gives the Met Office's postal address, and then a link to the contact details for the Met Office. And it just says that the Met Office are the producers of the data. So we need to do a bit of work for ESO. We'll probably need to do the same for the radar and at the national. But I think that that example from the e-profile is probably quite a nice one that we can share and people can use as a template. But if you do use it as a template, please remember to change it from the Met Office, because we don't want the Met Office where the desk get informed of things they're not responsible. Okay, some keywords. So these are the ones we've come up with to start with. We could add more, but that's quite flexible. Oh, reload. Mine's saying reload my presentation. What happened there? Well, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Let's get back to where we were. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
Will you come back to the concept?
Yeah, so I've got concepts.
Yeah,
Now.
concepts.
Okay, so now we have concepts. So there's what follows the next few slides is a long list of concepts that provide users with links to more information to do with, especially related to the meteorological parameters that are contained within the data set. Again, we've started reasonably simple, and we can add more information over time. And as with the geometry, we could be more dynamic. We could say this data set at this moment in time has these parameters at this temporal resolution, or the methods used to generate those observations. But we'll consider that. But to start with, we're going to start pretty simple. And I'll show you some examples of what we've done here. So we have some links to some WMO parameters and information about the topic hierarchy itself. So we're saying it's weather data and that there's surface-based observations. And I thought I put the air temperature bit, doesn't matter. Yep, so I think these are probably going to be quite universal. The detail maybe needs to change a bit, but most of our observations discovery data will include this. I'm not sure if it needs both the GitHub and the link to the WMO pages, code pages themselves, but we can edit that. And then at the bottom, yeah.
Just to confirm,
yeah,
everything that's in the GitHub topic hierarchy is also in.
Yeah, well, that's what I've, yeah.
So the code registry is the official list. So you're right, you don't need the GitHub one.
Yeah. So Jeremy's just confirmed that we don't need the GitHub one. The information should be the same, and the published one is the link, the codes one. So we can update that. That's quite an easy change. And at the bottom, we start getting into describing the actual parameters that are contained in the data set. So there's a link here to a description of air temperature. Yeah, I thought I had a separate slide. Okay, yeah, so more on the parameters. So there's more to be added here, but what we've done, we've said that, you know, things like air temperature, wind speed, the direction to the wind, and what we've used here is the scheme to do with the standard names which we're adopting in the profile work. So things should start linking up between the profile work and the discovery metadata.
It's worth saying that it's okay to, let's say we have air temperature as a description. It's okay to publish air temperature from the NERC vocab server, which is the CO standard name, and also air temperature from the WMO code registry.
Yeah.
They both mean air temperature. It's okay for the discovery metadata to declare both of them. That's fine. And then it makes it easier for people to say, oh, I'm interested in this particular term or whatever, and they know what they're dealing with.
But in the EDR profile, there's a recommendation to use a requirement product to use only.
So that's why I left the WMO. Yeah, so for those who maybe didn't pick that up, but the EDR profile itself just references the NERC standard names, which I have here. But as Jeremy said, there's no reason why we couldn't add the WMO references as well. But there might be some confusion. I guess if we were publishing the synoptic buffer encoded messages, I might only include the WMO references. But as we're not quite doing that here, then I've gone for this. But I don't. We're not writing this in stone. There are methods and ways to update and publish again. And then there's a whole bunch of additional metadata, the language, when the discovery metadata was created, then a little bit about policies and licenses. So the ESO data set itself comes under the recommended data itself rather than core. So we've said that, but it could be both. I think what we're trying to avoid is some of the data is core, and maybe the hourly synoptic messages could be regarded as core, but then the 10-minute high resolution data would be recommended. So we've said, well, I've suggested we put recommended here rather than core. Those are the two options we have. But we are saying that the data are users can have free and unrestricted access to the data under the WMO data policy, and we have the Creative Commons license there, and we're saying it's a data set. And then some links to, in this case, some information about data sharing within EUMETNET, and a link to, because we mentioned somewhere else that there's data from EUMETNET members, so I thought I'd put a link into who the EUMETNET members are. Okay, so this bit needs updating, and we'll come on to the topic hierarchy and another point in the agenda. So we have an issue at the moment that some of the things aren't published within WMO at the moment. So I mentioned earlier on this NO Met Norway -EUMETNET. So that's not registered with WMO at the moment, so we can't use that at the moment. But we can, for testing purposes, we've got a way around doing that. And also in the topic hierarchy, we've had to use this term experimental within the data set, because within the topic hierarchy below, within that hierarchy, there's something called surface-based observations, and then below that, there's very little that we can use. So, but if you use experimental, then you can you do whatever you like? Maybe, yes. So you can do whatever you like. So once you put experimental after weather, then you can do what you like. So what we've done is, what we're hoping to do is have land station observations registered. Then we can take experimental out of the topic ID topic hierarchy, and then it'll work. I guess the downside of using experimental, well, the downside of using experimental is that users will have to make, when we remove experimental, there'll be a breaking change.
So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I have a related question regarding the center ID. So in our case, the Metadata system is a family. Can we use the family center ID?
No. So what you'll need to do through your WIS focal point. Don't worry, I'm going to tell you about this in the next presentation. Okay. You would need to register something like 80-geosphere-EUMETNET host country.
Okay.
And then you'd use that center ID. Okay. All right.
Clear. Yeah. And when it comes to topic hierarchy, I guess
There is
warning.
There's warnings,
category,
yeah.
so
category,
you're fine, right? You just go core weather advisories and warnings.
Okay,
Done.
okay. Good. Thank you.
For ESO, we will have two topics, well, two different data sets. So the core data set and the restricted data sets.
Yeah.
And the core data set is not experimental, I guess.
So-
Then you have core, and that's just a subset. And
So here the use of experimental doesn't necessarily mean that the data is experimental or not. It's that the term in the topic hierarchy is experimental. It allows you to publish on whatever topics you want. And then over a period of time, the relevant WMO team will say, okay, that's actually a real topic hierarchy. Let's put that on the governed list. The key thing to understand is that if you don't use an official topic, the global brokers won't republish your messages.
Mhm.
All right, so they will just disappear.
Okay.
If you have experimental / anything, it'll get republished.
Okay.
And there is a clear process to add new topics into the list.
yeah, so somebody tells somebody to look at this list and say that
So
it's
that
stupid.
somebody
Yeah.
is the national focal point on Wiz, and I will tell you who yours is.
I know who it is.
Is it you?
No.
Okay.
So I missed the explanation why you need to use the experimental.
Okay, so
I understand that if the topic doesn't exist, you don't use it, but why in this case?
so I think that Stuart was saying that
The last part, land station observations isn't a. Maybe I come on. Are we talking about hierarchy another time?
yeah.
Yeah.
today,
Okay.
Friday morning.
Okay. So I can talk a bit more of that. But basically, land surface, the last part of the hierarchy, the level 9 within the hierarchy, has very few observations options. It has things like sign up and meter, or no, it doesn't. There's sign up and pilot, and old type buffer encoded messages. That's all the only options you have. So because we came up with our own option, or called land station observations, then we had to use experimental earlier on in the hierarchy, because land station observations hasn't been registered within WMO.
It's fixable. Yeah. And I'm gathering that as grit.
Yeah. So that's the grid I have at the moment.
Fix it before the end of start of operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll just use experimental, which then
Oh,
when we remove it, it's a break and change. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not ideal. No.
So let's say that some country actually sends non-land surface observations.
Yep.
Yeah, that was.
I know one country that does that.
So
That's me,
right,
yeah.
right now, you got ship.
Yeah, a lot of them, and some oil platforms, and yeah.
Right,
So-
it's actually the category in the topic hierarchy of
Yeah.
ship.
But that's
Yeah, but we haven't. Yeah.
It doesn't meet requirements. So let's make sure that the additional topics that we need get onto the official list,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I can help you do that.
But I think I've other issues with it, because it needs some coordination about what's the purpose of that level 9. Is it to be encoded messages, which it currently includes, or do we describe observing networks? And if we describe observing networks, for example, you could say aircraft-based observations are an observing network. So do we put aircraft-based observations as the last part of the hierarchy? Or do we say things like AMDAR, MODES, TAMDAR, as, what level of granularity do we need in that final bit? Or do we not, or can we ignore the last level? Can we just say all of our observations come under surface-based observations, and if you subscribe to this topic, you'll get all sorts of surface observations and we've not chosen to define.
Or if you actually ask for some general.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Also, in the current core, and I see what is actually currently in the list too.
Yeah.
Under the core, there is weather service-based observations, and people are sending them with 10-minute intervals. So
Which I think is wrong, because I think when you look at it, I think sign up means that old style buffer hourly message, because there's something like
observations that are done in the same time.
well, it could be. Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's no.
But that is what people now doing.
Yeah, I interpret it as the old messages, because if you look at some of the other possibilities, things like pilot and wind profile, they're not. There's something called wind profile there. And when you look into it, it's not wind profile.
I agree, it's too specific.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm happy to ignore the last part of the. If we can, I'm happy to remove experimental from it and just stop at surface-based observations. Yeah. But we need to get that clarified with WMO that we can do that. But that's the topic hierarchy discussion, which is another day. This is discovery methods. Okay, that's all I had to say on. I won't stop sharing yet. So I guess we're open to questions. We had a few as we were going through, which is great.
So you do one metadata item for all of CEs, or do you do one for each company?
It's just one. There might be two, but that will only be the second one. Maybe we make a distinction between this core and recommended data. So if we get data on the hour, the hourly message, so a subset of the data may be regarded as core.
I was just wondering,
but
when people cross to the catalog, they might be searching observations for Norway,
for
Norway.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anywhere the country mentioned.
So the only mention is, well, obviously you're the big geometry, big area, but it does say EUMETNET members, and then it says there's a link to what who the EUMETNET members are. But we could.
Not much available, so if you just use the OGC API records to search stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
This does not match. So either it should be the keywords or somewhere in the metadata so that
okay. So we could list. Yeah, we could list EUMETNET countries quite easily, or we could make it dynamic. Is that as we onboard a new country, we update the metadata. Yeah, so we could I'm more comfortable doing that than more dynamic which stations, because that's a bit more.
And the other option would be to do one item for each country separately.
Yeah, I think we will go for one, but maybe we can.
But either way, I think the country should be mentioned.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. Yeah.
On this code of recommended, so with the EU-based EUMETNET members, there shouldn't really be any recommended data left, because all of it's going to be open.
I'll leave Jeremy I'll leave Jeremy to describe what core and recommended are.
Okay, so core data is stuff which is for safety critical provision of public weather service as defined by WMO. Recommended data is for anything else which is useful for monitoring the state of the environment or climate or whatever. Core data is always free and unrestricted. Recommended data may be free and unrestricted. So there is no problem publishing open data as recommended. Don't conflate the issues. They're not the same thing. Okay?
Okay. There's a lot of people outside
the
world who don't understand that.
Let's have some more workshops.
Yeah, do that for, that's all. Yeah, just draw that grid that you did for me, and then.
For example, the portal only published the core data, so they're probably missing a whole load of data that are free and open that could be published on a portal, because they won't publish recommended data because it may have restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
But to what they do at home. It may have that, may not. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's why we've done on this slide, the data are recommended, but they are free and open.
I still don't believe that anyway.
Well, one's a WMO definition of what core and recommended mean, and then there's another one which is a license and a rights. So that, yeah. Anyway, but I agree, Willie. I was confused until I spoke to Jeremy last week, and he.
There are also a restriction that in the core you have to have buffer, but if you want to put some other format, then you have to put it in the recommended.
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah. So for those who didn't hear, that core data has to be in buffer, certainly for the land surface observations. So core data has to be buffer, whereas recommended doesn't have to be buffer. It can be whatever format. So again, that's something with ESO. We can create buffer, but that's not what we're saying the data are.
But I missed a bit, so you publish the core also.
So we can do, yeah, because we have this buffer encoder now.
So that any company can fulfill the requirement to publish the data.
Yeah, so they could send us non-buffer messages, and then the hourly data could be buffer encoded and put as a core data set onto WIS2.
You're just about to unplug.
And we'll show that tomorrow, how we have to solve that. So it's,
when I worked on this with Gijsbert for the climate data, actually we thought, but this is 1.5 years ago when we worked on this, that it would be core. So maybe we were wrong, but
well, I think that's probably like me. I was conflating what difference between what core meant and what the license was saying. So as Jeremy said, you can have recommended data that is open. All core data is open, but you can have recommended data which isn't open. So, but I was thinking that core meant open and recommended meant it's not.
But what's preventing putting this to the core?
So because the data are this high temporal and spatial resolution is not regarded as that safety critical data, and downstream users may not be.
In the guidance, which we'll write shortly. So the key point is that
there's actual limitation in the temporal resolution in the core.
Yes,
And that's what
generally speaking, in the WIGOS manual, it's 1 hourly for land surface observations.
and why does that really
So
exist?
you got to remember that we're serving countries of varying capacity, and if they're expecting to get hourly obs and they're overwhelmed with 10-minute obs, then that's a problem for them. It's even more acute when you've got folks like ECMWF who might publish at, I don't know, 10-kilometer global resolution across 50 ensemble models, and the resolution for the WMO specification is quite a lot coarser. So you'd end up delivering much more data than they might be able to cope with. I think this is
Isn't it up to the user how frequent they want the data?
Well, Jenny, if
You don't have to download everything.
you don't have to, but it's simpler if you. Let's talk offline, right? But this is an issue. I think it's great that we need to deal with. Yeah.
And I think this is great.
just to mention why we follow this requirement is to be able to turn off GTS in 2029. And a lot of countries are focusing on, well, they're not able to move away from GTS. So they need the buffer file and need the file that they have now. And we have answered to that requirement and produce buffer file each hour, calling it core. So it's it's stupid, but we do it. But Amund will talk about the encoding tomorrow, and it could be that we see that we encode too much data compared to the data going out on DTS today. Okay. So we have to solve that, and possibility is to actually make put certain stations into groups or Another thing that we discussed.
I didn't get a center ID. Why you needed a dash?
So we wanted to distinguish between the member who is responsible. So in the case of Met Norway, we wanted to distinguish Met Norway's data from EUMETNET's data at the center ID.
Okay.
But also that there's, I guess Met Norway will always publish that data, their data, but there's a possibility that another member will take on responsibility for, say, ESO, and then the center ID will change. Now that has implications because once the center ID changes, then the topic changes and it's a break and change. But we'll have to manage that. But we usually have a long period of time to manage that. But yeah, but it was to, and same with the Met Office, to distinguish Met Office observations from the EUMETNET observations that the Met Office publishes.
There was also a technical reason. So the center ID is tied into the specific instance of a broker.
Yeah.
So this has its own broker, and Met Norway or other stuff has their own broker. So it has to be different center ID. That's the limitation of these two columns.
Yeah.
But EUMETNET members as customers this data, not as data producers, as customers. Once they want to retrieve this data, are they supposed to connect to your broker or to the global broker? Or one global broker?
Global.
So what is I don't know why there is this MQTTS in the metadata.
So that tells people the channel that they could, it tells them where they can subscribe to. So one of the things that happens when you publish metadata is you write it with your local broker, and when the global discovery catalog repopulates or puts it into its catalog, it adds the global broker endpoints as well. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, WDSO has its own broker where you have a possibility to subscribe more granular, like for specific station and specific parameter.
Does ESO have its own broker? Is that what the question?
Yeah. So we have a broker that sends data out, but the global broker listens to that queue that we have and put it out to the.
But in that broker, at least you used to have a separate topics that were
I think you could
organized to.
you could have different topics, but you can't two brokers can't distribute the same topic, and that's probably why we can't have this EUMETNET center ID wandering around. So we can't give that to somebody else when ESO is moving to another country. So
Yeah, because we did want, at one point we were talking about having a center ID, something like EUMETNET, and then the Met Office would use that to publish the e-profile data, and then Met Norway would use it to publish the ESO data, but we couldn't do that because that if we did create a center ID called EU-EUMETNET, it has to be associated with one endpoint. It couldn't be a one broker. We couldn't share it.
But you could still use it. So now you said, for example, the Met alarm, you would have Austria as part of the name, and then like a prefix or a postfix, you would have
EUMETNET.
Ordningsing or something like that.
Yeah.
You can still use this naming scheme and have a generic one, so you don't have the issue if it switches the center. So is there a reason why you have to put, for example, Met Norway 90. So for example, it could just be EUMETNET ISO, EUMETNET EMA, EUMETNET, something like this.
No, we wanted. Could we have done that?
There's no
That was our initial idea.
Maybe it's version one.
Yeah. But
that was the second plan after the one idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
Yeah.
why the hosting member is there, because if indeed the hosting member at some point changes.
I think it just meant we would have had so many center IDs. We'd have had a proliferation of center IDs associated with all EUMETNET programs. You know, there'd be a EUMETNET-Opera,
Yeah.
eProfile, and eProfile.
No, even with the hosting member name in the center ID, we still need same amount of center IDs. Doesn't change that.
So,
The question is just instead of the hosting member name, you have a EUMETNET dash
yeah,
observations.
but at the moment we have the Met Office does 3 EUMETNET data hubs. Let's call them that, and we use the same center ID for all of those. UK-Met Office EUMETNET, and I'm not sure it is possible, but if you could do some sort of wildcard sort of *-EUMETNET, then you would get all EUMETNET data. But yeah, I think we've
Well,
been.
maybe it would be practical to see that it's actually not from that country, but it's data for everyone. It's data in the metadata with the region as well, right? But,
Yeah.
Maybe it's still have.
Yeah, but I'll have to think again about why we didn't go for. Maybe I should write these things down. Why didn't we do EU-EUMETNET-eProfile, and then if someone else hosts eProfile, then it just the topic ID doesn't change. I guess we couldn't. Anyway, I'll think about it again.
Yeah, another question that we had last week was concerning the parameters. So in ISO, the number of parameters or parameters is probably changing quite often, because we have 24 hours of data, and NMS could send in whatever they want from all different parameters. So the list of parameters in the concept, I think we had that. In ISO and in the open radar data, the list will be quite large, long. So my question so our initial idea was just to say that the concept was surface observations, and that you have to search the API to see what parameters was in the data set at the given time, because the data definition file, or this file, is a static file that's uploaded once, or at least not too often.
So what's the address of that? It was EUMETNET, where it was updating all the parameter.
It was observation.meteogate.eu collections observations, I think. Yeah, so if you go to this page here, I will.
Shall I stop sharing?
Nope, I just put it in the chat.
Okay.
If you go there, this is the list that's in of parameters that's in ISO at the moment, and that's varying. And you pretty print, and you get down there, and it's quite a lot.
See if I can stop. So I'm share my PowerPoint, but I'll share a different screen.
And we had much the same issue in open radar data as well, and there was an argument that this was one of the necessary things to get into the catalog, for ease in the for easier search. So I think Jeremy had an argument on that. The number of why argument. Well, I meant that we should try to reduce the number of parameters, having just this is surface observations, and you could put in whatever you want.
Yeah.
So for climate, for example, you have 8 different parameters at the time, and this is not that's not a problem. But when it's come to maybe 100 or more, then it could be more problem.
The discovery documents are intended primarily to be machine readable.
Yeah.
Machines can deal with big documents.
Mm-hmm.
So long as we can collapse down when we browse through the metadata in Data Explorer, so long as we can compress those lists so it doesn't just look like a huge resource, I think that's useful. Under the hood, the search engine or the catalog or the interface will be using that information. So you're typing in your query, you find the data that you need.
Yeah, but this list isn't static because it will change.
How often?
We don't know. It could be that you send in a research data set, surface observations of a ship or a glider that sends data for 10 hours and then never again. But for ESO or for the data set and for the users, that would be interested data. And if you don't read this metadata file again during that point, you will not find that data. So
you could update them discovery metadata every day or every hour.
Yeah, and then you will find the data that's in the database. So it's which probably not a big problem, but if we should have this full list of parameters, it should be dynamically read into the VIS2.
So rather than solution finding right now, let's talk about what we do know, and then we'll talk about it whilst we're here. Yeah.
Yeah.
These documents help me clear vision. This document looks suspiciously similar to the EDR profile.
Is this EDR?
But I think the range of values is a bit different. Like the one on the GitHub pro, it's the same one, or in this.
I'm not sure.
It's slightly different.
Okay.
So this is an OGC API records thing. It's GeoJSON.
Okay.
And
this is actually the EDR, right?
was it EDR? Don't listen to me.
But the document that was originally sold, that's the data. This was just to display the parameters.
So if you add / dataset, you will find the data definition file.
So like the methods, for instance, like the methods, the values again, like coming back to the realm of possible values. This is like exhaustive list already, or I got a feeling when browsing through the EDR profile that, for instance, Slovenia advertise averages as like average, and Croatia could just as well advertise averages as mean, and they will be right, and there's no common dictionary to.
You should probably follow the dictionary that we have proposed. So, the vocab service of NERC. I'm not sure which, but it's linked in the profile, which.
And easier way is to just ingest your data in ESO, and you don't have to deal with the EDR at all because it's already
in ESO.
Yeah.
So that would be the easiest way.
Yeah.
But if you want, in addition to with your own EDR, then of course it would be nice to follow the same.
Just to check the people at home, is it possible to hear anything about the discussions here? I guess not.
So one thing we could try to do is, if we're commenting from the audience, we could turn our microphone on in Teams and talk into that.
Yeah.
But we're going to have then microphone echo, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
But
maybe we'll think about that for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
are they online? I was talking to Anders Ekner. We are.
Online or asleep?
Well, that's a test.
What are they?
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I stop sharing? We're done for now.
And it says some of the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, some of it. Okay.
Okay, you got half an hour. Are you going to get people to try and build their own metadata?
Yeah. Good.
We could build our own, actually. Yeah. But we have something close. But yes.
I think the misunderstandings and errors that we have in our file wasn't that large, so
No.
it should be possible to change that on the fly. And if we have a template that people could use, it should be possible to or if you have an API at home that you want to share, it should be possible to build the file now. And as I understand, FEMD or MeteoGate has approved that the APIs don't have to be EDR compliant. So it's better to share data via some non-EDR compliant API than not sharing.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the initial plan was that only EDR and everything should be alike, but since the profile came now and not 2 years ago, it's yeah. So everybody that has an API that they want to share via MeteoGate could actually build a file and make it visible, at least for the test system that you have.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an EDR endpoint.
No.
It could just be a data set. It could be something you've made up.
Yeah. But do we have like a copy of this empty file that could be used? We'll link to such file. Otherwise, you could take the file that we have in ISO, and I think you should look at it as raw file, not that expanded JSON. It should be. Otherwise, we could try to do it online with Radar.
We could try and create a radar.
If we take 5-minute break now, and we could try to find a file. And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So you're going to try something in GitHub.
Yep.
Create some stuff.
Yep.
And then we'll try and validate it with the online validator.
Yep.
Yeah. How about that? You can see us hand-fistedly trying to type into into metadata. Or you could make your own. How about that? Yeah?
Mhm.
Do you have a GitHub repo with examples in?
I'm not sure if we have. I think this metadata file is in one in the ESO repo and one in the Open Metadata repo. But it could be put into the profile repo, for example. What do you think, Kimiko, about that?
Sorry?
Is it room for this type of metadata file in the profile repo, or should we make a new repo for this?
Maybe you can create some Oslo version of that.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay. Yeah. Shall I send you this latest version? The one I was just demonstrated, or
This is the ESO one.
yes, this
Yeah.
is the one I've just been, well, not sort of playing around with, but
Yeah.
I'll send you that as a.
So what did Nicholas? Should we take it in the profile? Or
No,
should
to
we-
create a workshop repo. To create a new repo.
Yeah.
So Miko, the idea was to create a new repo for the workshop.
Sorry?
So the idea is to create another repo for the workshop. Is it?
Well, I don't know what you had in mind, but
Yeah, well,
if you want to create some test metadata, I think
Yeah.
it would be nice to put it in the one repository. So that you can find it.
Yeah, and then we can. Yeah. Okay, I need to go to the toilet.
Workshop. Onboarding workshop.
Yeah, workshop or just for June 20. What year we're 25.
I can also share the climate example. But maybe we have to update it here.
Yeah, so we once we create the repo, then maybe to edit in there, and then we maybe have an ESO climate and a radar discovery metadata, just example samples, or and then hopefully then Jeremy can take those and do something. Dan das nochmal, das muss ich stehen. Ja, oder ist eine andere Nummer? Das ist,
I think it's that way that it's not because it's not the control.
Hello also. Das ist, was da beschreiben steht.
Receive the data. I think that's the question we got about all this. Yeah, I agree. It's with the service observations before.
Ja, nachdem es
easily made.
Yeah,
I think
one of the key things is
then gibt es Zeit-Combo. Zeit. Dann ist es okay. Also ich bin aber dabei, ich werde bisschen Score, so muss ich mir ganz machen. Du verwendest das WSL, oder?
Check from the source.
Ja, genau.
So this one is fine.
Aber ich würde
It's very nice for real time. Yeah, that's difficult to check. It's more of a yes, but it's
So how to get it pretty printed? Do you have the text file?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it now.
I like to have these new lines.
So where do you get the data with the data source for this?
we have this one is good. So it's
Okay, I'll just send it as an email.
Oh, I have it now. Oh, yeah, I take the former one. So
Okay, all right, I'll just send the latest.
how
It's really one to end.
We're thinking about switching something. But it's actually if we manage to switch there, it's very easy to use, and we keep our stuff. Managing it. Usually they don't manage. Yeah, 24/7. But this one is so simple.
Because I think
And we could get them. It's a kind of thing that
so this is
for the online,
and when it comes to the
it has
here,
it even has
and when it comes to yeah, but it was accurate on that. I just I feel the information you might not able trust what.
even for this.
Yeah,
Otherwise, the other end users. In another channel. But there is never. Usually.
now I have made file for the radar. So and it's pretty print and everything is handy and tidy, right? But it's
So how are we going to share the screens with the people online?
I'm not sure. Yeah, we should probably do it. But if
You could edit it
Would
on.
you like to do it, or should?
I'm
you
going to
do
have
it?
enough stuff doing in a minute.
Yeah.
Let's get Stuart in.
Yeah, Stuart is good.
Yeah. So you can. Yeah. I'll get Stuart to do it.
To Kubernetes that I gave up on that.
I could do it, but I think he has worked more with it, so
Yeah.
he's
And also-
more familiar with.
Your screen is kind of already doing that.
Yeah.
You did right getting rid of it. What? You did a good job getting rid of small projects. Yeah, small hosting. Yeah.
They incrementally increase the pain in your life.
Exactly.
Just ignore me, I'm stretching my legs.
Hmm?
Just ignore me, I'm stretching my legs.
Yeah.
All right. No. That's
Enjoying having
So-
cats and
If you follow the link to the file that I have, okay, there, and you do the editing, and I keep my computer as sharing for us. Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully it's open.
Okay, so edit it in GitHub.
You get it?
here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can edit as well.
Can?
Yeah.
So can I?
Now you have yeah. Okay. Then you.
So, and if I want to save the change, then
No, that's not. I just took it for the ESO, so it's just keep that.
okay.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay.
First version. So should we comment?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
Stuart will take us through the example of building the first then for the radar file. And let's see how that goes. We have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So if folks want to see it closer, the link to this resource is in the
Yeah, it's there.
down here.
Yeah.
so you can
Thanks, but Virginia, just type. I think it looks like the
is it a private repo?
Yeah.
private.
Well, it shouldn't be.
Okay.
So how do we?
I can see it, but I guess I'm part of the room.
Yeah, you're.
Yeah.
Let's not get into those that have and those that haven't.
Yeah, let's take it there and start here, and I will give you access if possible.
Okay.
Otherwise, what we can do is probably take the record and email it to people don't know if that's
It's
another way
public
to do it.
now.
Huh?
I texted the public.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Miko's
That
made it
man
public.
has power.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So one thing that confuses me right at the start is that it seems to be called the radar MeteoGate dataset.
I just found that name now.
Okay.
Oh, naming the file. It was a new file.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I need to be clear what I'm doing. I'm editing to make this.
Yeah, if we want to try and upload this in the next session
Yeah,
to the
okay.
thing, you need to use the center ID, which is going to be EUMETNET Members.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because that center ID already exists, because I registered it last year before they got strict on what you could do and couldn't do. Don't use that for operations, but it's useful for a test, right?
Okay. So let's just go for that then.
And this identifier, what you're on radar now. So is it radar real time or it's SWAB is some kind of?
I think the Canadians use for surface weather observations.
Yeah. So we could call it radar real time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So it conforms to the WMO spec, which is great. It is always a feature. The geometry.
So that's the.
It's the same as ESO.
Okay.
So that's like a polygon area that the radar
Probably
will do, yeah.
smaller than the UCOS area. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the interval as okay.
is it 5 minutes on the Gaza? The radar data is generally 5 minute interval. Yeah.
So that's the fact that you're covering a 24-hour period,
Yeah.
and then there's a different extent where you can say the resolution,
Yeah.
The frequency. I think. That will be here. So the resolution here would be PT5M.
Yeah.
And on the interval, you could say
Sorry,
what you did.
Yeah. I'm
00 UTC.
Yeah. I'm just opening up what I showed earlier on just to make sure. So in the interval, then we just change that to T. To Z, I think. Yeah. If I remember correctly. To T23. Z. And I think that now matches what I mentioned earlier on, other than
I think so.
it's 5 minute observations rather than 10 minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so the properties, we can say this is, so is this the composite?
Yeah, we can start with the European composite. Should we? Or should we just say European weather radar data? Because it's then cover everything.
This is only
Yeah,
European
okay.
radar data.
so we can type.
European weather radar data.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll just repeat that just for.
So I think one of the comments we had earlier was it would be really great to have templates or examples that can be followed. I go back far enough that I used to use makefiles to compile my C code. I never started a makefile from scratch, and I feel like metadata is going to be the same.
But it's easier to have an example to change than trying to build something from zero.
A lot of the time, there will be tools that will generate this stuff for you.
Yeah.
Right? So Wiz2Box, for example, will generate the metadata for you. The IBL moving weather will generate the metadata for you. But for some of this stuff, we'll do it by hand.
Yeah.
And if you understand how to do it by hand, when a tool does it for you, you have more of an understanding about what's going on. So it's good to do hands-on at the moment.
Yeah.
And in ESO, this file is produced on the fly. So you can always find the latest one. So it's
Okay, so this is all okay. It fits within the as weather surface observations, surface-based observations. So it's created.
Is the ID mandatory part of properties?
Sorry.
the ID. Just checking some of
I
the
think-
existing ones.
yeah.
Is it mandatory or?
I can't remember.
Not sure.
It's usually something like ID, title, description, and maybe a reference.
Yeah. Because this one was missing the ID.
So where we're missing the ID? Sorry.
It's not surface-based observations. Should find another one, I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
surface-based observations is okay.
Is it?
Yeah, so it fits in the hierarchy where the surface, so radar's a surface as well.
But it's not as, yeah, it's a surface-based observation.
Yeah.
So are you talking about one of the concepts that's up here, Nico?
No.
Down
Yeah,
here?
where we have the title and description.
Oh, up here.
Up here, the first one, at least in the example that I'm seeing in the
Ah, has ID.
global catalog, there's ID.
That is above the properties, isn't it?
No, sorry, identifier.
So that's like an external identifier. So for example, if you had a data set that was also published with the DOI, I think you could use identifier as a mechanism to
And
put
that's
those external ones.
optional.
That's optional.
So I want to put that in. Okay. Good.
I believe. We'll find out when we try to validate.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You should not have the underscore here.
Yeah. Okay. I think I took that out of the one we had earlier on. Okay. There's that. This is discovery metadata, which is created today. What's happened there? Okay, so implication that's the first version. So this is the next bit of the contact information. I'll leave it as it is, but we really need to
I don't think
be
EUMETNET is answering
that,
the call there.
no, and you have to send a letter. So
Yeah, ordinarily, this would be a useful contact that somebody could go to find out more information about the data set. So for example, if I looked at the DMI data, where you have support addresses and email addresses, if you've got a problem, get in touch here. It's that kind of information which needs to go in here, not somebody's postal box.
But it was just,
It was
we had to
filling
put
the
in
gap.
something and
Yeah.
I'll stick where the
So
radar.
interestingly, keywords are just random lists, right? So you should also put MeteoGate in here as well.
this list of keywords is actually used in producing the MeteoGate.
The data core thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is also the basis for everything that's in the Explorer.
And,
Yeah.
and the concepts and schemes should as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
the concepts with their schemes are controlled vocabularies, and you can only choose terms from
Yeah.
that are in the vocabulary. Keyword is just what you want to say.
Yeah.
So it's useful sometimes to use them both.
Are they useful for searching Explorer?
Yeah.
Okay, so like this small.
Yeah.
So earlier on, we were talking about putting the countries. Where would,
Yeah, you could put that in.
so you could,
keywords.
so I could put. Okay, let's just leave it as that for now, but no, I'll put another one in,
Give it Norway.
etc.
Just to be nice.
You need
no,
to down if you like.
Yeah, sure. So it's just been. Okay, let's leave it like that for now, but we could have 33 or a list of opera members, excluding some of the 33.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Now we're saying this is recommended. Radar data has never been caught.
Let's go
Yeah.
for it.
So I didn't have this in my example.
Yeah, so like for the sake of the quick thing that we're building now,
Yeah.
just get rid of the MQTT one.
Yeah.
And
All of these.
yeah, just
We don't need this, do we?
you'll need at least one link.
Okay.
And ideally, that should be pointing to the ODR API endpoint.
Okay. So I'm okay. Well, that's it. That's all we have in here.
That won't validate because it's not a real data.
It's not real.
It's not a real URL.
Where? Sorry. Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, let's get rid of that rather than try and edit it.
We have a URL.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Okay.
Well, save it, and let's see if it validates.
okay. So to validate it,
Well, you need to commit the changes.
well, my the green button.
All right.
Okay.
Now, if you click on raw, that will give you the URL for the thing you want to use. And in the chat, you go up a little bit in the chat. You'll see that there's the validation link. Okay, so this is the test instance of the Global Discovery Catalog. And we've got the Open API endpoint, which has got all the Swagger interfaces. And what we've got here, if you could just scroll up a little bit. So ETS is the validation service. There's a version for Get, but the host is better. If you scroll down again, just for a moment, we can click Try It Out.
I haven't put anything in there yet. There's nothing to try out yet.
Oh, it's called that. What's the drop down thing there?
But then there's a respond async, and that's in the options.
If you were to, sorry, if you, okay, if you cut out all of that stuff.
Everything? Or
No,
below?
from inside where it says record.
So I should do so much. I was looking at trying to control the mouse then and looking at the screen. Okay.
You don't, okay.
Well, has it not got an undo?
Yeah, you need one more bracket.
So you'll need 2 curly braces,
Yeah.
and then you'll need to put your record inside a curly brace. So, here.
Okay, so yeah, that's that.
Did you cut and paste that one in?
Yeah, so the URL to it.
Okay.
Cut and paste the URL.
I think it still needs
well,
one curly.
I think I'm just going to take that and do it this way.
Okay.
So we're going to take open curly brace, close curly brace, close curly brace. So that should be enough. You might have too many curly braces there. But yeah. Okay. Do you want to try it?
So what we've done is we've just cut and pasted the JSON record that we created into the validation thing, and
Okay.
But the original file already like it doesn't pass it. Like maybe you like as you iteratively modified it, maybe you made it better, but the original one that is checked out the original git repo doesn't pass it. Is that okay?
yeah, that one won't validate because it's got all sorts of wrong stuff in it.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
That's the stuff that you were correcting.
Yeah, so we fixed a bunch of stuff that wouldn't validate. If
Right,
you go
so-
to the bottom of this box,
Oh, it's the bottom.
execute.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I think that's what it was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't like your time interval.
Okay.
And your resolution of PT5M isn't valid either.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Should be.
Okay, so maybe I'm not quite sure how the validator is working.
Okay.
So just for the sake of argument, if you go and edit it to use a full time string,
Okay.
You do the validation, you just copy paste the whole thing in the box.
so when you look in the box, there's basically there's a couple of braces that go around it, which says here's the record I want to validate, and then you cut and paste the whole record into that set. Tom says he's also changed it so you can put href and then point to the record. Do you want? Let me have a go on that with yours.
Yeah. Okay. So I just put it. Was it asking for a real date?
There's one for
Is this going to be valid? Do we have an example with a proper date and time in it? Because it's complaining about the interval for some reason.
Yeah, if you have
What's the syntax for?
a copy. Copy it into the chat.
Okay.
So, you go.
Okay.
It's a bit strange, though. It's a bit misleading.
Yeah.
So, for radar, it's okay because you can say 2006
Okay. Yeah. Of course.
because we actually have an archive. So,
Yeah.
but then it shouldn't end there. So it's,
Have I got too many?
good.
Okay. So what we're saying is it should be. So if we say this is 2006,
Yeah.
because it's the radar data, I'll just leave that. But then we're saying dot dot.
Yeah. Try now. Not set. Yes.
Is that, do you think that's okay? I didn't like the resolution, but
Set 10 minutes then. Or 1 minute.
yeah, see if it didn't like. Okay. Okay. Okay.
You managed to build a file for voice? Oh, you should build this kind of files for the voice.
Kom ze even wat vervelend.
Without the changes.
No, yeah, I did that. I made changes, yeah. I treated it like
Currently complaints about the bunch of things. But just also 5.
Okay, did you get it to work yet?
No.
No?
Invalid parameter value.
Jimmy?
Yep.
Okay. So I suspect you have too many code.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got an empty one there.
Okay.
So if we get rid of that one and get rid of the associated one there, and if we execute.
And I was come back where.
Let's come back with. So one of those things he doesn't like.
Yeah, so it could be the ... So we went for it because it's the archive radar data. We went for, well, it doesn't have it has a start sometime in 2006.
Okay, so just for the sake of argument, let's copy that.
Let's stick that into the ... Yep.
There.
Yeah. Oh, Z, maybe that was it.
And then we could make that one.
Stick an hour.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
Let's try and execute that one. I suspect it still doesn't like your temporal reference. So the validation thing is checking all of the temporal stuff.
Yeah.
I want a new window.
Yeah.
Okay. I've lost it now. What's happening?
What we seen it.
To manage? No, we struggling.
Yeah, that's correct.
So new window? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just this gets. Can you minimize this? Okay. Okay.
Is it human errors or is it the validated errors?
I think that so some of them are human errors, like when you cut and paste, so with too many curly braces and then empty piece.
Okay.
So if you go to it, if you take that and then paste it again.
Oh.
So we did to the computer and ran it out of batteries. So let's move on to the how do we publish metadata. Nico managed to generate one which passed validation, and he got 3 out of 4 for the API test. Yeah?
Bloody typical.
So should we swap to the how do we publish it into the global catalog?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just what's we figured out what was the problem with this time object that's
We'll check when we finish and make sure that we report back what the problem there was. And
just to make sure that
I suspect it was the interval thing.
Yeah.
We were still getting an error on that one, but we'll check. Yeah.
I had the same issue.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out.